Maurice Nicoll, Psychological Commentary, Volume 2, based on his work with Gurdjieff. This group was conducted at Birdlip, January 7th, 1945. It's entitled Commentary on Memory. This is Part 3. This purification of the emotional center and its memories is very difficult and long work, but if you keep the ideas of the work clearly before you and remember that negative emotion can only breed negative emotion, if you remember that violence can only create further violence, if you remember that nothing real can ever grow in negative parts of emotional center, nothing except lies and falsity, if you remember that no one can reach even a trace of real I if he is venomous, full of hatred and self-pity and depression, then perhaps very gradually, keeping all these things in mind as well as the whole idea of the work, you will be able to have shorter negative states. This is the dirt that has to be cleared away from us before anything else can happen. This is the dirty mind that has to change, but first one has to observe one's negative states. And you will often find people who assure you they're never really negative, even those who are all the time enjoying their negative emotions to the full. I will remind you of what Mr. Ouspensky once said about negative emotions. He was talking about false schools where rules were given that were impossible to keep. He said, in so many words, it is quite easy to say in a school that people have no right to be negative, but saying that means that man can do. A man who, under all circumstances, does not become negative is already a conscious man. What I say to you is this. I say to you that you have a right not to be negative. Now, if you are foolishly sincere and simply express your negative thoughts and feelings in every situation, you're not being sly man. One can always plunge into any situation with all one's ordinary negative ways of taking it. What we have to learn in the work is to take some situations a more conscious way so that we get through them without becoming completely identified. As you know, we identify with our negative states very easily. Here we have to remember ourselves to remember what the work is teaching us. We have to remember that we have to endeavor not to react mechanically and to try to think what it means to be cleverly sincere. To be cleverly sincere, one must be sincere to one's understanding of the work. This can help a great deal, and this is where memory is consciously applied. I must remember this myself in this situation. This is an example of the work on oneself. It is not the same thing as being cautious or wary in a life sense. It has quite another origin. Being cautious in a life sense is going with your going with your mechanicalness. You are mechanically cautious. But the above example is about acting consciously against one's mechanicalness, against oneself. Now, as regards memory in the moving center, here lie all kinds of extraordinary memories. Memory for walking, for skating, for riding, for speaking, for balancing, for bicycling, for eating, for sewing and knitting, for doing everything with your hands and everything with your feet. These are memories that are acquired, but some are born, such as the memory for sucking. The work teaches that sinners are born blank, like smooth wax, and are impressed by impressions from life. The great exception is, of course, the instinctive center, which is fully developed at birth. Otherwise, digestion, etc., would have to be learnt. The instinctive center attends to the inner work of the organism and is itself the representation of organic life. Cosmos, in man, or in what is ordinarily called nature. The cleverness of this center is beyond all computation. It is, for example, a 10,000 times better chemist than any actual chemist. Without this starting point, man could not exist on the earth. He is given this first of all, is also a small development of the moving center, but nothing else. This is not quite correct because he is also given higher centers fully developed that are always at work in him, but he is not in contact with them. They represent higher cosmoses in man. Now, in the instinctive center lie memories of sensations. Some say that they can recall their sensations. This may be true, but from my own observation, I do not remember the actual sensation, but something disembodied. For example, I say to you, what is the difference between eating strawberries and plunging into ice-cold water? You will know the difference, but the sensations are disembodied, ghost-like. When you're eating something that gives you a particular sensation of taste, smell, consistency, you are reminded of other similar circumstances by association. This is memory of sensations. Or when you eat something said to be lamb and it is not, you know it is not. This means there is memory for different sensations, but I do not think this memory is easily recallable voluntarily. Sensation works in the present moment only, just as all the senses do. Thought, for example, is different. You can recall a memory of a thought you had yesterday, but I would say you cannot recall in the same way a sensation. Thought is independent of the senses, which only work in the present moment of time, and in fact make the present moment of time. But some trains of thought are timeless, and you have to come back to your senses to know what time it is. If we could recall sensations in their totality, we should never move away from being agreeable sensations. But in recollection, they are very thin. People forget their sensations, such as those due to war, very easily. You could recall fully the sensation of being warm. You would never be cold. Certainly it is possible to create warmth, and some yogi schools teach this, and first of all, but it is done through the mind and not through recall. Let us now speak of the connection between memory and association. The connection with this enormous subject, we must remember that all associations are connected with memory. The lowest level is automatic. The highest level is through corresponding ideas. Say you swing your arm around and suddenly begin to talk about cricket, how you used to bowl for your team. You do not know why you talk about the cricket, but the movement, as it were, rings up memories of cricket. The side of our life is constantly at work. We do not even notice it. For example, you sit in a certain position, you may become negative. This is because you have been negative before when sitting in that same position. Some other time we will speak more fully about associations, which one aspect of memory. And I must say here that all has been written above, and all the things that follow belongs to the study of the human machine. The work teaches us that we must know our human machine and catch glimpses of how it works. When we take ourselves for granted or take ourselves as one big I, always the same, it makes it impossible for us to work on ourselves. We are like a city full of different people, some of whom are very handsome, as long as we take them. And as and this city is full of used and unused roads.